Hey students, this is lesson 8.8. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to factor by grouping. Go ahead and do the review here, and I'll check back with you. All right, factoring a cubic polynomial. The first thing you're going to want to do when you're doing this is look for a common factor of all the terms and factor out the greatest common factor. Since we have 4, 12, 1, and 3, and no factors of n, there is no greatest common factor. So the next thing we want to do is group it, and just start by grouping these separately from these and just see what happens. So the greatest common factor of 4n and 12n is 4n. So we're going to factor out 4n from that, and we get n squared plus 3n. Oops, I should have factored out an n 4n squared, you can see there. So we're going to factor out 4n squared, and then we get n plus 3. And hopefully this is a factor of the second part, and it is as long as I factor out a -1. So then I get n plus 3 there. And so my factors are n plus 3 and 4n minus 1. Now you want to check the factors you have left and make sure we can't factor those anymore. Since this one fits the form a squared minus b squared, we can factor that into as the difference of two squares, a minus b times the quantity a plus b. So I get 2n, that should have squared there, 2n minus 1 times 2n plus 1 when I factor that. And then just if you want to check and make sure that it worked, you can multiply those 3 out and make sure you get your original polynomial. Go ahead, you try that. All right, our second problem here, again, we're going to look and just see if there's a greatest common factor of these 4 terms that we can factor out. And you should notice that they all have a common factor of 3 and n. So we're going to go ahead and factor out that 3n. The first term will be 3n to the 4th divided by 3n, which is n to the 3rd. Second term will be 12n cubed divided by 3 to the n, which is 4n squared. 15n squared divided by 3n is 5n. And negative 60n divided by 3n is minus 20. Okay, now we're going to split up, we're going to group these, try grouping it this way and this way. And so we get, we can factor out an n to the 2nd there, and we get n minus 4. And hopefully n minus 4 is also a factor of the second thing. And it is if we factor out 5. So plus 5. So we now have factors 3n, n squared plus 5, and n minus 4. And then we just want to check those and see if we can't factor any more of those. And this is not a difference of 2 squares, so that's not factorable anymore. So that's our final answer. Go ahead and try that. All right, finding dimensions of a rectangular prism. A rectangular prism has a volume of, given by this polynomial. What expressions can represent the dimension? Remember, volume is length times width times height. So if we could factor it into 3 different things, that would be the expressions to represent the dimensions. So we're going to look for factors of this, and one of the factors is the common factor, the greatest common factor, which is x. So there's one of the three. And when I factor that out, I get 4x squared plus 12x plus 5. Now this trinomial, I'm going to look for factors of that. And so I need numbers that have a product of 4 times 5, which is 20, and a sum of 12. And so thinking of 1 times 20 is 20, 2 times 10 is 20, and those two add up to 12. So those are the ones I'm going to use. And so I'm going to factor the 4x squared, rewrite that like this, 4x squared plus 10x plus 2x plus 5. And I'm going to group those and write it as, let's see, 2x is a common factor there. 2x times 2x is 4x squared, and 2x times 5 is 10x. And 1 times the quantity 2x plus 5 is 2x plus 5. And so my other factors are, so I forgot the 4 out here, or the x out here. That should be x. So one of the factors is x, and one of the factors is 2x plus 1, and the other is 2x plus 5. All right, you try that. All right, summary of how we factor these. The first thing we do is we factor out the greatest common factor. Then if a polynomial has 2 or 3 terms, we look for the difference of 2 squares, a perfect square trinomial, or a pair of binomial factors. If the polygon has 4 or more terms, to find, we would group terms to find a common binomial factors. And as a final check, make sure there are no common factors other than 1. All right, that's the end of the lesson. Go ahead and do the lesson checks, and we'll talk about this next time we meet in class.